Welcome to part 4 of the Stations of the Resurrection. We have stopped along the way with many of the disciples, hoping to have some of what they experienced rub off on us by immersing ourselves in those moments that help them move from devastating grief to hope. And not just personal hope, but hope for an entire planet. Hope that would stir them up to spread something they called the good news across the world. Today we arrive at a quiet, lovely place I am calling the Station of Still Waters, a phrase we just read in Psalm 23, where the shepherd leads the sheep beside still waters. So did you know that sheep will not drink from moving water? The shepherd has to find still waters to rehydrate the flock. As we extend the metaphor, isn't it also true that to rehydrate our soul, we have to find places of stillness? The uncertainty, the unsettled turbulence of this time can discourage and disorient. Wouldn't it be wonderful to arrive this morning at a place of stillness and simply drink it in? Now, how can I suggest this is a station of the resurrection when I'm basing my thoughts on a phrase from the psalm? But actually, this sermon emerges naturally from the gospel we read last week. Jesus had just appeared to a group of disciples who had not caught anything all night as they were trying to fish. Jesus yells a joke at them from the beach. "Try the other side of the boat, fellas." And in their exhaustion, they said, "Why not?" The result was a net-ripping abundance of fish. Then Jesus waves them in with a comforting phrase, "Come have breakfast." Jesus had bread, and then he fries the fish over a fire on the beach. It's a happy, comforting scene, laughter and joy being the real food. So it's in that context Jesus also asked Peter a question. "Do you love me?" Peter says, "Yes." Jesus responds, "Feed my lambs." Jesus asks him again, "Do you love me?" Peter, a little annoyed now, says, "Yes, I do." Jesus says, "Tend my sheep." Then Jesus asks him again, "Do you love me?" And it says Peter was hurt that he kept asking the same question. And so he pushes back and says, "Lord, you know everything and you know that I love you." Jesus again says, "Feed my sheep." It is easy to miss, but something is lacking in this liturgical moment of back and forth. Did you notice Peter never responds to Jesus' call to feed my sheep? There is no "I will with God's help." Peter never agrees to feed the flock. Now, it has been argued that this was a moment of healing for Peter because, after all, you may remember, that he had denied knowing Jesus 3 times after Jesus was arrested. And now Jesus was giving him a chance to affirm his love 3 times. But I think that something else is going on here. Jesus is getting Peter to face his humanity. Peter always wanted to be the best, to get it right, and Jesus' questions bring Peter to his deepest imperfections. Jesus is bringing him to a moment of surrender, a moment of letting go, a moment of self-acceptance where one stops trying to earn God's love, but rather simply receives that love which is freely given to all God's children. Peter makes it all about his love for God, not God's love for him. What if Peter could just let go, just surrender and respond honestly? Do you love me? Well, sometimes I love you. I think I love you. I would like to love you. Sometimes I hate you. Sometimes I don't believe a thing you promised. This would have given Jesus the opportunity to respond, "But I love you no matter what. I will always love you." That would have led Peter out of his turbulence to a place of stillness, not one of strife. The story says that Peter is hurt. He is hurt because he keeps failing, can't find his way, and can't even catch any fish, even though he's a fisherman. He is hurt because he is still making it all about him. And now, even his love is questioned, and he can't even agree to put what love he has into action. Peter is bottomed out. I suppose this could have been the station of bottoming out. We Episcopalians resonate with Peter, don't we? We like the idea of being top of the class, well-balanced, morally superior. We are the ones who have a plan of action, who love to ask hard questions, who enjoy being magnanimous. We would prefer to build our resume, not have it torn to bits in front of us. We like to earn our love, not have it freely given to us. But Jesus is leading Peter, and by implication us, to a place that is hard for us to go to, but which will give us true rest, a place of still waters, a place of monastic surrender. He does this by inviting us into this metaphor of a herd. Ouch! That hurts. Jesus is using a terrible metaphor for Peter and for us. Do we not resist the idea of being compared to a bunch of dumb, smelly animals? Do we not resist the idea of being part of a herd? Come on. We're sophisticated, smart, experienced. We are not like those other sheep. Jesus knows that part of what keeps us from experiencing peace is that we have an arrogance that we figure this out on our own. The pride of being set apart, but really the fear of being ordinary, being part of the dumb, stinky herd. Now, before you get all bent out of shape and feel truly insulted and hurt like Peter, I would like you to know that the most insulted one in this story is Jesus. Because Jesus is associating himself with a shepherd. Scholars have argued that in the first century, shepherds were considered to be the lowest of the low, not just economically, but also morally. Shepherds were not a reputable lot. In fact, in his book, Despised Trades and Jewish Slaves, Joachim Jeremias describes in depth the culture in Jesus' day, and shepherds were considered scum. In fact, much like tax collectors, they had come to be known for dishonest thievery. They would lead their herd onto land they did not own, steal other people's sheep, and were considered to lack morals. In the Jewish Midrash, from a commentary on Psalm 23, we read, "There is no more disreputable occupation than that of a shepherd, whose pursuits were mean and inglorious." So before you take offense at being compared to a sheep, let's start with what I think is a radically prophetic comparison that Jesus makes for himself, referring to himself as a shepherd. What makes it even more prophetic is when he calls himself the Good Shepherd, a contradiction in terms in his day. Jesus is trying to shake his disciples out of what we today might call a form of Puritanism. You know, that view that you can only be a Christian if you are morally pure. This leads to judgmentalism and arrogance and an us-them mindset, which certainly is one of the reasons why people avoid churches. This puts the focus on our goodness rather than God's. But if the focus is on God's incarnational immersion into the reality of humanity, becoming as one of us and saying that God is here right now in our stinky reality with our stinky, smelly way of acting, and God too is dirty and stinky with us, then the focus is on God's grace. It's a relief that God is with us right now, right where we are. And we don't have to get to some other place to accept God's grace and love. This is a message of still waters. This is peace. That is what we need in this turbulent time, where we too may be more focusing on our individualism, our fear of what is happening to us instead of what is happening to others. A time when, like Peter, we want love, but we are also guilty, like Peter, of not responding to God's call to feed God's sheep by saying, I will, with God's help. Isn't it interesting that we need the herd these days? We are told that what we need is herd immunity. It takes a herd. The new version of it takes a village. It takes a people willing to know their limitations and a willingness to feed God's sheep. Even though we don't normally say the prayer of confession in the season of Easter, I asked John to add it this morning because it reminds us that we do things we should not do, and that we too have left many things undone. But Jesus, by his very life, absolved us, and that is the starting place. Not our strength, but our weakness. Richard Rohr put it this way: we come to God not by doing it right, but by doing it wrong. We come to God not by doing it right, but by doing it wrong. Can I just say, we are exhausted. We are tired. We are grieving. We feel lost. We feel anxious. We feel broken. We are traumatized. We have not done it right. May this confession be a catalyst of surrendering to God's grace and love. May we all know that it's not about our love, but God's love for us. And may that be the still waters that will rehydrate our souls and send us forth to rehydrate the souls of others. May I suggest that Psalm 23 be our creed in these difficult times? The Lord is our shepherd. We shall not be in want. He makes us lie down in green pastures and leads us beside still waters. He revives our soul and guides us along pathways for his name's sake. Though we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, we shall fear no evil. For you are with us. Your rod and your staff, they comfort us. You spread a table before us in the presence of those who trouble us. You have anointed our heads with oil, and our cup is running over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow us all the days of our life, and we will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen.